this scandal of electricity, our rates will go up because by law, it has to be purchased. I'd love to own a business where you have to buy my product or you face the wrath. And again, and God bless millionaires. I'm a capitalist. But millionaires shouldn't become bigger millionaires with no skin in the game on the backs of the taxpayer. There's no benefit for us. It'll destroy our community as we know it. I'm done tonight. Thank you. But I do have more to offer when the time comes to speak the truth.
Dr. Calvin Martin, I would like to say ditto. Everything he said had my name. Thank you. Well said.
Thank you, sir.
Well said. Any other comment?
My name is Brittany Taylor, and I'm a Malone transplant for about the past 5.5 years. And my belief might not be the majority tonight, so little after 5 of definitely no benefit comments from everybody. I think it's important that we look at not just the fact that this could or could not be an important thing. A lot of things on here literally no benefit, as I mentioned a whole bunch of times. Obviously, one of the negatives is the taxes. That's the main concern on here. Other than, of course, the wildlife management, which is a whole other thing that we can spend time on. The reason that taxes is obviously such a big thing is from our community, we need our taxes to use for other public assets. And without the taxes that we would get from this project, of course, that's money that can be invested otherwise. And we're basically, quote unquote, giving it to towns like this. However, what I want to say is that I don't believe that there is, quote unquote, no benefit to this. And I don't think it's been on record, whether it's just me, I'm getting most of my information from some people that I know in the project, from the papers. And I don't think it's ever been mentioned that there is benefit to this project. And I think we would be doing a disservice to our community members if that didn't make it on the record that there is a benefit to this project. Whether or not that benefit outweighs the current negatives of this project, that's what our board is there to determine. And I mimic Mr. Miller's sentiments that you need to check every avenue that you can. I just want to use a current example, and if anybody's heard of the Amazon HQ2 project, why are cities bidding out millions and billions of dollars to get Amazon, a privately held company, millionaires, to come to their city with enormous tax breaks and enormous things that they're giving Amazon, saying, why don't you come to our city? Where we're having a small town meeting saying, don't come to our city because we're not getting taxes. The reason that the cities that are looking at Amazon, knowing that chances are they're not going to get a cent on that real property, they're not going to get anything through taxes. They're looking at the big picture. They're looking at things like job growth. Now, of course, obviously 6 full-time jobs could or could not be that. You have the part-time jobs. I don't know the answers to these questions. These are just questions that I feel should be posed by the board. Are these people who are working there, are they going to be locals? Are they going to receive training from this company if that happens? Will they be able to do training in the future? If they're immigrants, where are they? Yes.
One question about that. The gentleman from Toronto for the next presentation at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
And what the president told me today, the president will have a question and answer period. Do not take the whole event, but just short questions.
All right, perfect. So I guess
The questions you're asking now, we don't have the answer.
Right, so that's my question, is the town board, with everybody saying there are no benefits, I don't think it would be a service to the community if we just kept reporting that there's no benefits, there's no benefits, there's no benefits. There could be job growth, there could be an infrastructure gravitational pull, where you get things like that's why obviously, that's also another story with the wind towers. Some people like them, some people don't. But obviously those wind towers have brought other infrastructure in this area, such as this project. And then, is it going to bolster the local public good? If we're making business with them, we can't put a stop on negotiating at all. If we're going to do it, why don't you demand that they be a part of the local community? Donations to the community colleges, our environmental science class. I'm not saying that this is a good project, bad project, I do not have the knowledge for that. But again, my biggest thing is I think that there needs to be both sides of the stories, in the minutes, in the comments reported, so that we can get the best, resolution.
And our minute is on our website. Okay, thank you. Yes,
Bob Wilson, I guess I would tend to disagree with this young lady. On paper, so far, there is nothing that says this is a benefit to Malone. This is the best farmland, not only in Malone or Franklin County, in northern New York. It's class 1 and class 2 soils, which is now, and there are no other soils other than that farm in Franklin County are class 1 and class 2 that are being used actively, that other farms have tried to purchase, and we need to keep it in agriculture. We get no sales tax out of this. We don't get it. If you were gonna tell me we get 2 cents or 4 cents a kilowatt like they do in Messina or whatever they get for a break in Messina on their power, fine, I'd be willing to, maybe that would make a difference. If you're gonna cut 600 acres of trees down somewhere and put it up there, fine. I don't live in the village. I'd hate to be living in the village when the sun comes down and you have those 900 acres of flat mirrors shining down in the village some morning at 10 o'clock when that sun comes out. You're going to be blinded. As far as one thing that's been brought up, and I don't know what the answer is, I do know I hit water at 28 feet. I do know that several wells around there hit water at less than 30 feet. So the aquifer is not very deep in that one section of around the vicinity where we live. I do know that that has been brought up before as far as the chemicals being washed into the aquifer. How much water they're going to use, I haven't heard, or it was brought up tonight, I'm not sure. This does need to be done before the pilot is brought up. I believe the school board already passed one back in 2008. That takes care of it. And I would hope and urge that the school, that you as the town board pass this local law. Thank you.
yes,
Ann Breton, I live in town of Brandon, and it was my understanding that it was mostly on Alpion 47, and I don't see where it's beneficial to any of the taxpayers in Franklin County or the town to opt out of 487. And if I build something, I have to pay taxes on it. And if we're going to build something, especially to make profit, they should be paying the taxes on it. The other parts of it, I think, are for later on when you have all the issues and are allowed on it. But opting out of 487 for people who don't live here, I know there's at least 2 corporations that are leased, but we get copies of them. I got copies of them yesterday. But, so, if they don't have to pay taxes, then why do I? I've lived here for 29 years and 4 days, I think. And I pay my taxes. So, an outside corporation should. It benefits me to say they don't have to pay taxes. Benefits aren't there. I don't agree with people that lease property now, but I'd rather see him leasing it and selling the feed than, industrial complexes in. I moved away from industrial. I went down to visit Dad the other day. They made the highway 2 lanes wider. It's 40 feet from each house. I left that because I wanted the wilderness. I don't want the industrialization. But if it's paying taxes or not paying taxes, they need to pay the taxes that everybody else is paying. And that's my opinion.
okay, thank you.
Martha Weaver. New York State Section 486 takes the ability of the local people to make decisions about how development is going to be taxed. It says that there will be no taxes for 15 years, and no matter what we want, we have no say. So what this town board is doing is opting out of that section and saying that we will tax industrial development. And we will benefit our taxpayers because frankly, if these people paid the taxes that this installation would be worth, I think our tax bills would go down quite a lot. There would be a lot of benefit to the community to look at, whether you think this is a good project or not. If I understand it correctly, if the board takes a position to opt out, it doesn't mean that these people can't build their project here, because they could still do a pilot, a payment in lieu of taxes. However, it gives the town leverage to negotiate with them. So this opting out of this law, I think, is probably the only choice that we have as a community. There may be a few downsides to it in that it takes all of these green energy projects and makes them taxable. So small projects would therefore have to be taxed. And if they're industrial, you could look at a pilot with them. If it's residential, it's a little more of an issue. But if you look at the trade-offs, I think that what the town board is doing is the only thing that makes sense at this point.
Yes, like you already spoke, we got a lot going on tonight. This is just, we're just gathering information for the town board to make a vote up for whether we need to opt out of tax exempt. And we're gonna, I think we got plenty of information right now. I think we got a sense of the audience here, which we want us to vote. If anybody got anything else different to say, yes?
I'm not hung up, the taxes are a big deal, but I worry about the people. Jerry Duffy, Malone. There's people that live in that realm. Their property assessment, if they're surrounded by this thing, their property assessment should drop dramatically because you've impacted them to the point of, and some of these people I know are in their 80s. So I don't think they're going to move. It's just, the last few years are being overrun by this thing. Now that's I like the wildlife and we talked about wildlife on the ground, but all these geese migrate to those fields. And I've been out there in December with 5 retrievers, and the flocks are so large, the dogs can't flush them. There's thousands and thousands of geese there. What's going to happen to that? And that's a nice thing in Malone. When you come into Malone on a dismal November, December day, you see the snow geese along the road, with the Canadian geese. But that doesn't count. But that's it.
It should count. I think it should count because the people that come in to see those
Excuse me,
geese.
identify yourself for the record.
Pardon me?
Can you identify yourself if you're going to
I'm
speak?
sorry, Carol Langdon. My husband and I, third generation landowners, and I have to agree with Mr. Duffy. The geese draw a lot of people from out of the area, out of state, hunting licenses. There's revenue in many different forms where the wildlife are attached. And it's just upsetting to think this is going to come to be. I'm just here to find answers tonight.
Everybody, Malone, I've lived here all my life, and everybody says the state's gonna do this, the state's gonna do that. Where does the money come from? If it ain't ours, taxpayers. And you people look at, all this, the people that come in here to visit in the summertime and all this stuff, and you're gonna put up something like that, and you think the windmills are an eyesore? That definitely is an eyesore. Because who wants to look at that stuff going down the road all the way around the village of Malone? I still don't know.
I think we've heard enough comments. I'll take one more if we have to have one more. If not, people come forward.
Howard, I think you should mention there will be a presentation.
Yeah, I heard that. Okay, call the town Malone IDA meeting to order. This is the organization meeting of the town Malone IDA, appointment to destination, motion to designate official depository of the Santa Maria IDA as the community bank.
Make a motion, a resolution to designate the official depository for the town of Malone IDA as a community bank.
All in favor? Aye. A motion to set the official meeting date and time on the second Wednesday of each month at 5:45 p.m.
There you go. The meeting date, right, time, Wednesday, 5:45.
You have a second? All in favor? Motion to appointment to the Finance Committee, currently Ed, Jack, and Louise. Governance Committee, currently Mary, Louise, and Ed. And the Audit Committee, currently Mary, Louise, and Jack.
Make a motion, a resolution to accept the appointments as read.
All in favor? A motion to adopt the following pay schedule for 2018 and budgeted. The secretary at $2,400, the attorney is at $750, and the pump inspector, which is the sewer pump in the IDA park, is $75 for inspection.
Motion to adopt the pay schedule as read.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Regular meeting of call to order, minutes of September 13th, 2017 for review and approval.
I make a motion, a resolution to accept the minutes of September 13, 2017 for approval.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any old business? New business. We got the new business proposed budget. What you go over
I'll
that?
be quick.
Huh?
I'll be quick.
What you go over that?
What we propose is for personal services, which is the secretary, that would be 2,400, the same as last year. Utilities, a little bit of an increase up to 8106, which is the water, sewer, and electric. Professional services, the attorney and auditor, I'll set that at 5,000. Repair and maintenance, which is the inspector, set that to 4,000. Miscellaneous expenses, any parts that might be needed from website update, any miscellaneous in the month and year at $1,250, and then taxes at $50, for a total budget of $20,856.
Any questions? Entertain a motion. No, leave it.
No.
Not accept the budget. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
2017 audit?
I just want permission to reach out to the firm.
Entertain a motion this evening.
Make a motion, a resolution for our budget officer to check the returns for our 2017 audit.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Treasury report, balance of money, public fund money management account, community bank, $29,338.79. Balance of CD, the community bank, $28,135.57. And bill for audit payment, in total of $2,109.33.
Make a motion, a resolution to accept the treasurer's report and pay the bills of $2,109.33.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any other business with town IDA?
Jack.
If not, I'd make a meeting November 8th at 5:45 p.m. Entertain a motion.
Motion adjourned.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Not too late, separator for the board meeting. Come to order, please.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
agenda tonight, requested from Geronimo Power, Andy
Catania.
requested to address the board meeting. He wants to clear up any misconceptions, and I'm gonna ask everybody, I know we got a mixed crowd here tonight, I'll let the gentleman speak, we won't interrupt him. He agreed to after have a question and answer period, but at that time, if anybody got a question, we'll question the board, and we'll have him take care of it. All right, Andy?
Thanks, Howard. I have some presentations I can hand out, and we give a couple of board members, and then however many extra we have, you guys can share. It's a little bit updated. There's a few copies here. Folks want copies. Yep. Anybody else? I don't know if I have played enough, but I gotta sit sometime. I'm down to my last one.
I don't have a researcher, I need to have one.
Here, I can share it for another.
Okay.
I'll share it.
Thanks very much. Thank you, guys. Okay, hello everybody. My name's Andy. I'm with Geronimo Energy. We wanted to come to the town tonight to just provide some more information about solar energy in general, solar equipment, and what's involved in solar construction. So I'll try to be brief and go over the main points on the equipment, and then if there are questions after, I can help to address some of those, but we just wanted to get some information out there about solar energy and solar construction. So I guess first off, we just say that we want to be honest and transparent. We're here to answer any questions that folks have from the community. We'll take individual meetings with anybody that has questions about the project and wants to sit down and learn more or address specific things that they have concerns about. So please grab me after the meeting and I'll be happy to share my contact information. So again tonight, the brief agenda is an overview of solar equipment and then an overview of solar construction, and then I want to address a couple common concerns that we hear a lot in developing projects, just to get some information out there. So there's three main components to any solar project. There's solar modules, there's the solar racking, which is the equipment that the modules are mounted on, and then there's an inverter, which takes the direct current electricity that a solar module makes and turns it into alternating current that our grid operates on. Those are the three primary components that make up a solar facility. When you talk about the different stages of solar construction, generally you come into a site, you prep for construction, so and then you start with pier installation. Once you've installed your piers, you build out your racking, attach modules, and complete your interconnection infrastructure. And there's some pictures of this that I'd like to walk through. So I'm on page 7 right now. There's two main types of racking that are used for solar equipment. There's what's called fixed tilt, which faces 180 degrees south, and then there's what's called a single axis tracker, where your rows are running north-south and your panels move very slowly with the sun throughout the day. So those are the two main types of racking foundations. The foundations are really assembled in a similar way. So if you go to page 8, you'll see a picture of what a typical pile installation looks like. So to build the foundation that we're talking about, we don't use any concrete, any cement for the facility. It's a driven post that goes straight into the ground, which the facility is built on. So there's very limited impact to the ground, which is a benefit of solar. So what we'll do is a geotechnical test to figure out how deep a pile needs to go into the ground. It can range from 10 feet to 12 feet depending on the soil. And then these posts are what the racking is built out on. But the nice thing about a driven pile like this is it can be removed at the end of the life of the system. So generally when you're talking about permitting and decommissioning of a project, it's common for decommissioning security funds to be required at the start of the project so that the equipment can be removed at the end of the life of the system. On page 9, there's some more pictures of what those posts look like once the foundation has been built out more. So this is a fixed tilt system that's facing south, and you can see how the piles are now being built out with the additional infrastructure. On page 10, you see what a single axis tracker looks like. The image on the left gives you a nice idea of what the vegetated state looks like, after a facility is up and running. We try to plant a low-growing, pollinator-friendly seed mix under the array, which can have benefits to pollinator species, but it'll be a vegetated ground under the system, and then it'll be mowed to keep weeds down and keep the facility in good order. Typically, racking can vary in height from 10 to 15 feet tall from the grade of the ground to the top of the array. So that's generally the height that you're talking about when you're talking about your racking. When we talk about modules, there's two main types of technology. One is thin film, the other polycrystalline. They do really the same thing. All of them look very similar. Generally, they have a glass front. Think of that like auto glass, and then some have an aluminum frame. Sometimes you'll have an all glass frame. Generally, they'll have a little bit of an anti-reflective coating on them, and sometimes a little bit of texture so that they absorb as much of the sunlight that's incoming as possible. There's some pictures of what modules are being delivered to a site looks like on page 13. They generally just come on pallets. A nice thing about solar compared to wind is you don't have heavy loads of cement coming in for construction. It's a little bit lighter weight and easier on roads. And then page 14 kind of shows modules being bolted on to panels. You can see the racks that are set up with horizontal beams so that modules can start to be mounted. And then you can see some workers that are bolting down modules to the racking that's been established. There's just a few more pictures of the equipment to give you an idea of what the finished product looks like. On page 17, there's a shot of an inverter. So inverters are interspersed throughout a facility, and then wiring runs underground to an inverter. An inverter is the only place on site where you need concrete. So minimal concrete for footings that an inverter skid would generally sit on, but very limited concrete. And then on page 18, you see a picture of the revegetation of the facility. So, during construction, you're going to have a little bit more bare ground. And once the facility has completed construction, you'll revegetate and, grow low-growing grasses underneath the facility. So I tried to put together a list of some common solar concerns just to address a few items. When you talk about sound, solar is really virtually noiseless. Once you are away and set back from a system, you're not going to hear it. I think at 150 feet it's considered like a background level. I think background is less than like your dishwasher. I think background is like the technical noise term. Decommissioning, like I said, we talked about how we use minimal concrete, so it makes decommissioning a facility easier at the end of the life of a system. For water usage, sometimes for projects that are in the desert, you'll tend to wash modules off where you can have larger amounts of dust accumulation. In northern latitudes, you don't need water for a project, so we don't anticipate using any water for a project like this. The natural rain will clean the panels, you won't need water. When we talk about avian impacts, I've heard that that's a concern that's been raised by a lot of folks tonight. I know that as a part of a project like this, you'll have extensive studies that are done to understand wildlife impacts and if there are negative impacts that need to be considered when you evaluate a project. like I said, we'll try to plant we're gonna plant a pollinator-friendly seed mix under the array. So that should have benefits to, bees, butterflies, pollinators are a big environmental topic that we hear a lot about these days. The heat island effect, the modules are going to warm up. They're a dark surface, so it's just like a road. There's heat that accumulates when you have a module. But I think a system like this isn't going to be changing the climate of Malone. I don't think that heat islands are going to be an issue for those projects. And then with glare, it's, I think, a common conception that, if you have a glass module that, the light's going to be reflected. The panels are designed so that they absorb as much light as incoming as they can. So you're not going to be reflecting light out of the system. Those are just a few of the items we wanted to address, and if there are questions, I'm happy to try to answer a few.
I'm gonna ask more right away.
Sure.
If we have 900 acres of these panels, and the wind blows here all winter long, I mean, the wind, not just the whole trees, if you have big wind, and you're gonna say there's no noise, and the people will hear that in their homes around these?
You're talking about wind blowing through
Yeah.
the array and creating noise?
Yeah.
It's
gotta whistle somewhere.
No, it's a good point. It's something we could probably look into and get you some better information on. So we can do that.
Because your pictures only go up to 250 acres.
Yeah. So we can check that out.
I have another question. You say that there's no glare, but we are in fact within 5 miles of the airport, and the FAA does require a glare test.
Yeah.
I'm assuming there must be a reason why they've always required one. We had to have one for our solar arrays on top of our building.
Yeah.
So there are concerns as far as the airplanes are concerned, because it is right next to our airport.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. When you're close to airports, you do need to do glare studies for a project. With the modules tilted towards the sky, whenever you're within a radius of an airport, you do a glare study. But glare at ground level, has not been an issue.
And the FAA is also concerned about the proximity to the airport as far as the planes coming in, landing, and leaving, etc. So I just want to mention that.
Yep.
It's a logical concern. This is an airport.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll look at the airport and take safety concerns very
We're gonna
seriously.
have to look at it. I've already talked to our chief engineer for this area. And he's very concerned about this.
Yes, we are. We've run into this before with the airport, and we don't want to have to fix something and have it cost a lot of money because somebody made a mistake. We will be very thorough in our consultation with the FAA.
Sure.
Yes, Bruce? Identify yourself for the record.
Bruce Burdette, Town of Malone. Would this solar farm in Malone be completely fenced in?
Yeah, we would have a security fence around it.
How high?
Generally 6 feet with 1 foot of barb on top of it.
Thank you.
Yes, Mike? Identify.
Mike Fournier, Malone, and I represent Farm, F-A-R-M. I want you to go, please, into more detail. Virtually no noise within 100 feet. Well, I live within them 100 feet, maybe 200 feet. So number one, what's my remedy if you're wrong? Okay? Generally a 6-foot fence with barbed wire. I want you to put on the record what happens to the wildlife in this 900 acres. I want you to state for the record what happens to the deer and the turkeys that are out every single morning every night. I'd like you to explain that for me, if you would. And I won't take any more of your time, just those 2 questions. If you're wrong about virtual noise, because the only thing I hear at night now is crickets. It drives me nuts sometimes, because it's so quiet out in the country. All right? And you didn't mention if they're lit up at night, so do I lose my total darkness being out in the country too at night? So if you would answer that, I'm going to do my best to shut up.
With noise, I think it's something that we could probably do studies.
What's my remedy? I asked you, my question was, I appreciate your answer, but the question was, what is my remedy if I catch that noise in my front porch every time I step out? What's my remedy? That's what I'm asking you directly.
It's a tough question to answer.
Thank you. Do you have an answer?
I don't have an answer for it.
Okay.
I would say that what we'll try to do is, address your concerns up front, so that, if it's something that could be studied, we can try to.
Could you have an answer by the next meeting?
Probably
I
not.
represent 1,000 people right now, and there's people signing up every day, okay? Again, FARM, Friends Against Rural Mismanagement. Not just me, but I've got neighbors. I got one neighbor, they mow their lawn and it actually stops when it touches the cornfield. What is their remedy with this virtually no noise? If they can't sleep anymore at night, or they have to keep their windows closed for the rest of their natural life, because only a fool would buy that place. What is their remedy? Thank you for your answer. Your silence is golden.
Well, it's starting to sound like a
Wait a minute.
dishwasher,
Wait a
which
minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a
is
minute.
what indeed.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. The guideline to stand up and identify yourself and speak freely.
I made all the minutes I need to.
Just so you know, we need it for the record.
Handwritten, and like you said, the noise would not be any more than a dishwasher, okay? We're a little more educated than that.
Mhm. I can get
We talked
specific.
about town, CBAs, CBC, you know, and you haven't had any answers to anything yet. And saying it's not destroying the ground, what I read, it destroys the ground underneath when it's done, to the point where it's not usable for anything, it's poison. And also, each panel kills 6,000 birds a year. And that's not counting a migration path. This is a migration path. I don't know if you've ever been here before or not, this is a migration path. And if you wait around 2 weeks, you'll see it. But you haven't answered any questions, you don't know anything about this. What is this meeting about?
We can get specific information about the DVAs that come from the inverters and get that back to you.
Well, I mean, you know, people like me have seen a lot of things that have little ones come to this meeting thinking that you were going to tell us something about this project, and you haven't. I mean, am I wrong? Has he told us anything about this project in particular? What it's gonna do? Nothing, right?
I was here tonight to try to provide some general information about solar and equipment, and try to
That
get
was
some
to
questions.
satisfy the PIP for the Department of Works, for the a public showing within a certain amount of time.
That wasn't our intention. We'll plan to have, additional public meetings. I just came tonight to the town meeting to try to provide some information to, just the folks that showed up.
But you're not providing information.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned being open and transparent. I am concerned about the fact that you called the county in February and talked about this project, but you didn't come to the town board until September.
I had the same question. Thank you, Mary.
As a town board member who is responsible for the community, I'm responsible for transparency too, and I find that a little
Sneaky.
It's incorrect, and also there's already been leases filed at the courthouse, and that was not said either, so I'm big into transparency. You spent a lot of months being untransparent.
Yes.
Russ, that's a bit, Russ.
Russ Kenyon, Franklin County Economic Development Director. Thanks for coming and trying to address some of the misinformation. And I would say there's a bit of confusion about which side the misinformation is coming from. When you met with me, your company met with me in February, I was told this was going to be a 90-acre project. And I looked at the map at that time and I said, boy, 90 acres is a lot of farmland to take up, and I expressed a lot of concerns about the environment, about farmland protections, about our farmers, about local dairy. I expressed that there were multiple areas that you could consider. There were other substations in the county that you could look at that were far less impactful. And at that time, I thought 90 acres was a pretty big project. You contacted me several times over the past several months, not once was it ever mentioned that this had grown to 950 acres. There was at least 4 or 5 opportunities that I know of that we had conversations with your company that could have been mentioned. It was never mentioned. I did find out in July that you were pursuing leases with the landowners, but we weren't given any concrete information except I knew about who the landowners were, about what the parcels were. But we had no complete maps, we had no information. A month ago, well, I knew that you were going to file for a NYSERDA application to provide energy to the grid. You asked me for a letter of support for that. I was reluctant to provide a letter of support because I really had no information. The support that I offered was that we support solar in general, but that I didn't support any specific projects to protect ourselves because we really didn't have the information about this. A month ago, you called me and asked me to set up meetings with officials, which I was happy to do because I want us to get information about this project. I have strong concerns about the efforts that you've been making lately to pick off individual government officials. You've been making phone calls regularly to individual people. You've been making a lot of efforts to manipulate individuals. Howard and other officials have made it clear that we don't wish to be communicated with individually. We want to be communicated with as a whole, as a group, because we want to make sure we all have equal information and that we're all equally informed. And I think that's not a lot to ask. I think it keeps the comments in the public arena. It protects our ethics. It protects our integrity as government officials, which is very important, I know, to all of the officials that are in the room. We would hate to be seen potentially as meeting privately with a developer who could influence us personally. I think that's not a good strategy for us as officials. So I have some serious concerns about some of those honesty and transparency issues. I have a lot of issues with the lack of genuine concern that's being expressed. I mean, in your packets, and you've told me several times that you care so much about these farmers, that your owner's a farmer and all these things. But we know that this is prime farmland. It's designated as prime farmland. That is not just a statement, it is actually prime farmland. The state has significant concerns about these projects taking up prime farmland. There are other areas of the county that we would love to see solar development, in areas where it's less impactful, it's not along a scenic byway, it's not visible from many miles around. Those are all concerns that we have. We've chosen to live in this community because it's a beautiful place, and there's a real wonderful balance with nature and development that we value and treasure here. This project would be 7 miles from the Adirondack Park. It would block coming in on 11B, you would no longer see that beautiful view towards Canada. That would be completely blocked. The view towards Mount Titus and towards Owl's Head would all be blocked. The golf course view would be impacted. There's just a lot of considerations that we take seriously. And every meeting that I've had with you, I've brought those considerations up, and every meeting they've been dismissed as not important. And you've offered your perspective and your opinion, which quite honestly is pretty irrelevant to us, about what you think, whether they're beautiful, whether you think they're wonderful, whether rainbows come out of them. That's your opinion, but we're the ones that have to live with it. You live in Minnesota, the landowner lives, I think, in New Hampshire. So there's really not a lot of consideration given to the local community. You've been asked, if the community doesn't want this project, would you continue forward with it? And you didn't really have an answer for that. But we found out before the moratorium was passed last week that you filed your Article 10, the PIP was filed, your application to NYSERDA was filed, or to NYPA, I think. And we got no communication saying that took place. I had to find that out through the website. I don't feel like that's very transparent.
I have also put it on my Facebook page and I boosted it, and I had over 100 responses because I have solar in my yard, one of these small little guys. So I grow solar.
We all are.
Okay.
Everyone is.
But I have to say, 9 acres is another story, and I wanted to know what the community said. And their question was, what are they giving to Malone? Valid. I'm an elected official. I want to be able to answer that question. And I'd ask you now twice at other meetings those questions. And the answer is lacking. and it was to the people who emailed me as well. There's no break for our electricity. As a matter of fact, we probably will see a higher cost in our bills because every time the state of New York gives out our taxpayer dollars to boost one of their projects so that Mr. Cuomo can enhance renewables, which I agree with, we should be, we get a bill, we get extra money charged on our bills for that. So we're gonna give up 900 acres of our land that is now producing crops that are being sold, and being sold in many cases to local farmers who are using them for our cattle. And yet, we will get charged for that. We don't get a benefit of a lesser bill. Not only that, but every time one of these companies comes in and doesn't pay their share of taxes, you all pay more. We could use that money for taxes, because then at least everybody would see it. You'd be paying less. They'd be paying their share. We would all be improving our community. But that's not the case.
I just wanted to add a couple other comments. In our individual meetings with me, you've told me that you want to do this project. In order for you to get the award from the state, you have to do this at the most minimal cost possible. You told me that you would do minimal screening, that you might plant a few trees if someone complained about it. I believe those were actually pretty close to your words. And I was also told that the Article 10 process was good because it was going to prevent a vocal minority from stopping this project. And I'm quoting. I wrote it down. I think that's concerning because this is obviously, we're not a vocal minority. We're people who care very much about our community. And I believe that's the perspective of your company, really ultimately, is that you're driven by the profit potential for this project. And we all know that's the case. And we understand that that's what companies exist, is to make a profit, but we have to be concerned about the balance with our community and the balance with our community needs. The tax dollars would be great. Good government is about more than just tax dollars. It's about really protecting our community and making this a great place to live and balancing that with quality of life. And I think that's something that is very important to us. So that's why.
Good job, Russ.
Thank you, Ralph. I'm Lars Tenson, Malone. I have some specific questions that I think that our town probably should be asking. You address some common solar concerns, but I have some specific solar concerns. Specifically, you're saying sound at 150 feet, the background level is that of a dishwasher. That study was done. At what distance is it zero? That is at 150 feet to 500 feet, does it sound like a dishwasher? Or at 150 feet, it sounds like a dishwasher, and at 1,000 feet, it sounds like a dishwasher? Give us what it sounds like when it's 0.0. That distance is more important here than what it sounds like. Number two, water usage. You're saying that because we are in the northern climates, we won't have the same kind of concerns for dust. However, everybody who lives in this town knows that when they harvest the dry corn, there's a lot of dust. In the springtime, if it's dry and they're furrowing the fields, there's a lot of dust from the dirt. So that's a specific question I have regarding that as well. Also, you're saying that extensive environmental studies will be completed and reviewed. Can we look at any prior studies that you've done, specific agency studies that have been done, and can you provide those to us? In addition to that, the heat island effect, you said, sources state heat increases could not be measured from 100 feet from the facility. What size was that facility? Was that an 80-acre facility, a 45-acre facility, a 25-acre facility? It's a 900-acre facility. You've shown us only pictures of up to an 80-acre facility. What does a 900-acre facility impact? That question has not been answered. So there's a lot of specific questions. In addition, the pretty pictures that I assume were taken from a PowerPoint presentation are showing a lot of flat land solar development. There's no problem with view because there's no view. If I'm living a mile and a half away from here behind a tree, I can't see this. I guarantee you Derek Champagne's gonna see it from his house, and he's probably not gonna be happy about it. So, do you have any information about what people are saying who live in areas where similar developments have been done, and what their concerns were before and after that you can give us? There are, I mean, I went through the entire little thing that you got here, and I can't see one thing specific that tells us anything about the actual impact this is going to have. What are your commitments to farmers even? You say you're committed to farmers, but I see nothing in here that says anything about commitment other than we're committed. I mean, if I tried to present this anywhere, I would have 100 questions pop up. And these are the dozen that I've come up with in the last 5 minutes listening. I do not see how this provides any kind of information to the town of Malone that's going to help us determine whether or not this is good for our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well said.
Leonard Case, I live in Ellenburg. We had a wind project done in our town a few years ago. And the wind, talked about transparency, the wind company came there 2 years before the public meeting and spoke with the town boards and spoke with the families. 2 years for the town. And our town supervisor's country boy. So I asked him. I said, if someone comes back in your back door in the middle of the night, are you going to invite them to stay? It's people, just what I've heard here, hasn't been that transparent. And they hear people. It's, it all has to be on the table, and it all has to benefit the town, county, taxpayers, not just 1, 2 dozen. It's a very big amount of money, and if the town people doesn't get some from it, then why do it? It's ridiculous. We've got windmills up there. A few of the farmers are getting paid for them. We all have to look at it and talk about views. Where I live, we go over our hill, you know, we can see Montreal. Now we see 100 windmills, more. It hasn't been what they said. Their taxes were going to be cut in half. I paid $15,000 a year in taxes then. I paid over $15,000 in taxes now. Not 10 cents more. Yeah.
You spoke earlier, I think.
I did.
Shortly. Come on.
Alright, so Brittany Taylor again from Malone. So obviously, I spoke earlier, and I just wanted to stand up here that I spoke almost in what seems like a benefit for your company. Spoke out against some of what other people were saying, and my community obviously as a whole has a lot more than what your company does. I came here because obviously there's detriments, and I agree to those detriments, but I came here because I was hoping to hear about some of those good things that would come out, because I did not know about this project, and as Mr. Eaton had said, good government is not just taxes, and I felt like that was the holdup, it was all taxes. So there is an awful lot of bad and negative. But I came here because I was hoping that you would explain some good, and this has nothing in there about why this would be good for our community. As I had mentioned earlier, with Amazon coming in, you know, they're bringing good to the community, and I was hoping that this was a project like that. So instead of just being, I guess, a monologue to you, I do have some actual questions, such as the questions I had asked earlier. As far as the job growth, what kind of training are you bringing in transplants? Are you bringing the training for that? As far as the public good, what kind of grants are you going to be setting up? Are you going to get I didn't realize before that you had said that you put up some trees if people complain. What kind of outside aesthetically pleasing barriers are you going to be putting rather than just the vegetation? Those are just a couple of the questions. I'm hoping if you have more, say it, because you're obviously drowning here.
Well, I'd say during your first question about jobs, you know, you need probably 275 people to construct a project of this size. So we'll work with a large contractor, which will try to pull from the local labor force as much as they can to build the project. In terms of long-term jobs for facility, you probably need, 3-4 people as plant managers, and then a couple people for vegetation management throughout the facility. In terms of public good, the project is going to pay, a substantial portion of taxes, and we like to set up community funds with the projects that we develop. So we put aside a significant amount of money for a community fund that could be allocated as the town sees fit. But like I said, I understand everybody's concerns, and we appreciate the feedback, and we want to work on the project and figure out a way that we can maybe try to address some of these concerns.
Can I ask just a quick follow-up on that?
Just one.
So you're saying a lot of these are projects that we've done in the past, but if you've already talked about this in February, you would assume that we would have exact numbers of jobs, you would have exact information.
Frankly, we really don't. So we're, from a developer's perspective, we're very early in the process on this. A project like this wouldn't get built till the year 2020. So we're coming now, we're trying to, be at town meetings to get feedback about the development and hear from the community.
No exact numbers.
Okay, you got another question over here.
Just a quick one. I was going through Watertown last week, and they had ads on the radio complaining about, from the UAW, for UAW Labor's Union, a full-minute ad stopped bringing in foreign, in other words, Colorado workers to build the wind turbines in Tug Hill. I guess they're doing another expansion. Now, that tells me that when they built the ones out here, the Vermont license plates were flocking in here to build a Chateauguay. What guarantees, or can it be made, that we hire from Franklin County residents first? I'm just, can it happen? That's-
Can I answer?
We're still a ways off from the construction, but when we talk with a contractor, we'll encourage them to hire locally as much as they can.
Terry McGuire, Malone. You said your decommission would be very easy. Has Geronimo Energy decommissioned any solar projects? And have they decommissioned a 900-acre solar project?
No, we haven't. But just judging by the the fact that it's a pier and you have limited concrete, that the expectation is that it's going to be easier to decommission than something that involves a lot of concrete.
So you've decommissioned no solar projects? 400,000.
There aren't any solar projects that would have gotten to the point where they could be decommissioned. So.
Following decommission, the soil, basically the microbes will be baked after years. It's going to be sterile soil. Prime farmland will be turned to sterile. After decommission, what's the process to restore that USDA prime farmland?
I guess from my understanding, we're going to grow grasses underneath the project, and you won't have a detriment to the soil.
And if you're wrong, if I was to do a soil sample, say every 6 months for 5 years, if you're wrong, what happens? Oops, too late. The studies I read, the microbes even die. You have sterile soil.
Well, in addition to that, I'd like to add, if I might, that right now, those fields are getting crapped on by geese every fall. Those geese aren't going to land in those solar fields. They're going to come down close because they probably, I think that it's a body of water or something like that, given the color as seen from the air, but they're not going to land there. So therefore, the fertilization that gets naturally every fall is going to disappear as well. So the soil quality will diminish regardless of whether or not you plant flowering, pollinating seed or whatever they're planting. Just from that standpoint, I know it's going to decrease.
Okay, Bob, there's raising a hand back there.
When you take soil out of agricultural production, you don't add fertilizer, whether it be through manure or through manual fertilizer, you're going to decrease the soil value. You talk about windmills here. When you put the windmills up, at least you can still use the agricultural land. This land will be completely taken out of agriculture. And one other thing you might not know, but Richard Ball has been contacted. This is an agriculture district. And it's workable. there's agriculture agencies in this county trying to stop it cold right now because of that.
Andrea?
Oh, I'm interested to know how many projects you personally have been involved with so far, and where the largest project your company that you represent has built.
The largest project would be in Minnesota. It's a 100 megawatt project that's broken out over about 16 different sites. Quoted as 100 megawatt project. I've probably worked on 30 different projects in Minnesota on a smaller scale, ranging from the 2 to 10 megawatt range, 2 to 5 megawatt range.
How many acres is that? I got one more question for Andy. Why don't your company go to New York City and put all this stuff on the rooftops down there? If right there we're gonna use the power, and if they've got millions of, thousands of rooftops in New York City, they off the whole solar.
The city comes to us for the environment.
Because there's no money in it.
It's more expensive to build rooftop solar in the city.
You're gonna wheel it 400 miles from here.
Howard, you didn't answer that question. How many acres is a 5?
Generally about 5 acres a megawatt, maybe a little bit more depending on your roof spacing.
So the largest that you've worked on is about 500 over 16 different sites? Is that at a 100 megawatt?
Yeah, it was lots of separate, smaller sites. And then
What is the largest single site, you know, and I'll say continuous, given that despite the fact that there will be roads dividing this, it's still technically one site. What is the largest single site acreage that your company manages?
that's been built and is operating currently, the 5 megawatt projects. Large.
And what is this one destined to be? 150 megawatts. So you literally have no studies that can show us any information about the impact that this is going to have. Literally, there's no information available, and we're to be the pilot program for what is supposed to be the future of energy in this country, and you're putting it on a hill. Guinea pigs. I really would like some more specific technical information to be doled out to the people of this town so that we can understand what the benefit is and to a level that we can actually use. This is a PowerPoint presentation that you would that you would give to students. This is not a technical document in any way. And look, I understand you're here giving this crappy thing that you don't want to do. I understand that. And you're going to take a lot of crap from the people here because we're scared out of our minds that this is going to ruin this whole community. And from what I've seen, you have no idea whether or not it will or won't, because you have nothing that compares on scale to what this is going to be. Nothing, not even close. I mean, and obviously shunting it off to an economically depressed region with a bunch of people that can be outvoted by Albany at any given moment it makes great economic sense for you. The land is cheap, the people are pushovers, you know, and the state doesn't give a crap about us, ultimately. It makes perfect sense for your company to want to develop here. I understand that. It's economically, it makes beautiful sense. But it makes no sense to anybody living in this community because it's not going to be a benefit in any way that I have seen or that you've presented to us. And that's our concern. And I would take that back to Geronimo and lay that out there.
I have 3 more people who want to speak. Is that the hands up? Voice?
Hi, Boyce Sherwin, I live here. 900, I looked at your maps where the project goes. 900 acres is industrial scale, way out of scale for our community. And also cover both sides. It's almost like a science fiction horror movie. Your entry into the village of Malone would be black on both sides, out as far as the eye could see. You would also have a black hillside right next to the Branch Brook, a lovely trout stream, and bordering on the golf course, which is a famous landscape and an important tourism effect. So whether or not anybody else is going to complain, I'm going to complain about the visual aspect. And I want to say that the scale is totally out of scale for our community and our landscape. A question I have, 900 acres. We're on a very significant flyway, migration route. And 900 acres is obviously a pond effect. You're going to have geese crashing into these things, thinking that it's a giant pond. How are you going to prevent that? And that's a serious question, and I want an answer to that. And I know you don't have it.
Yeah, no, it'll be.
Okay, so there's two things. It's out of scale. I will vote against any town official that approves this at this scale. I want it screened, and I want the pond effect, which is monumental, to be eliminated. And I would like answers to those issues. Thanks.
My name is Mary Ann Goodfellow. I live locally, and I just actually wanted to follow up these questions, concerns about the scale of this project, of why in other communities you go with smaller, dispersed development, which seems to fit more into the kind of community that we have here versus something so large in scale.
The state's energy goals that are set up, encourage development of projects that can offer the cheapest price of electricity possible to the market, and that means large-scale projects. So in other states, there are programs that encourage smaller developments.
Candy Gabbard. In talking about transparency and such, you obviously appear overwhelmingly our community thus far as opposed to this project. What would be your company's intention if we said we really don't want it here? Are you going to move forward, try to define your back?
I think you already have moved forward.
You already filed Article 10, correct?
They already have.
It's already got a PIP.
They've been behind our backs.
Well, I think I would like to hear an answer from Eric.
Yeah, if we may.
I'm going to take the feedback that we got tonight, and if filing a public involvement plan is carrying out a public involvement plan for the project. So it's coming here and meeting with everybody who's here and getting feedback. So I'll take feedback back to ourselves.
Not an answer. It's not adequate.
Dolores Rice, Dick.
We can't hear you, man.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Sam Holmes. How long would it take them to clear it off if we get 4 feet of snow from one storm?
It would take some time, yeah.
How much electricity do we produce after a 3-day blizzard? There's so much snow on it.
I can tell you none. And I can tell you need a roof cleaner individually for each one to clean them up.
Okay.
Hi, Dolores Rice, Dickinson Center. I'd like to ask, is the developer intending to partner with NYSERDA for an RPS contract for the project?
It's not an RPS contract, but it's similar. They have a renewable energy standard that they're pursuing,
So that would be your partner to purchase the electricity?
it could be NYSERDA, it could be another party, a utility.
Do you have any potential partners that you're speaking to now?
The NYSERDA auction, the project has been to the NYSERDA auction and to the NYPA auction, but we don't have feedback on those public RFPs.
So basically, it would be New York State purchasing the electricity, and then the ratepayers would be mandated to pay for the REC certificates?
The state purchases the REC certificates, the electricity is sold wholesale on the market.
Whose money does the state use to purchase that?
Yes, ours.
Mine. State doesn't have money, folks. They take it from your pockets every week. They give it away to rich people. Sorry.
I have a
Sure.
some.
Carl had a question. I think.
Well, Carl Sherwin, Malone.
And actually, one of the questions that I've got is pretty technical, which I suspect that you could answer, Andy, and that is that it's a 150 megawatt system. Each of these panels is tied into an inverter. Each of these inverters is put on concrete pylons. How many inverters are you talking about with a 150 megawatt system?
So generally we're at a 3 megawatt inverter at this time, so you'd be talking about 50 inverters throughout a facility. So they'd be interspersed kind of in blocks throughout the construction. And the idea is to construct in square-like blocks. Squares and rectangles.
And each one of these inverters is on how many concrete pylons?
I'm not sure how many pads specifically, but you have several concrete footings and then a skid. So I don't know, figure a skid is maybe the size of that half of the room. And then your underground cabling is going to be individual inverters, and then the inverters are tied together, and cabling is then run to your interconnection point at a substation.
I have 1 minute.
Russ, we got a.
I know. I'll try to be quick about this. About a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, I sent an email to you and Eric, and I asked a series of questions I didn't get a response to. One of those questions is, you just said earlier that you would be paying a significant portion of the taxes. Now, in our meeting with the town, and our board members can probably attest, I think you said you would be willing to pay 10 times the current taxes, which are about $30,000 a year. Up to you were offering $300,000 is what Eric offered as what you were interested in paying in taxes. Now that's 0.02%, not 1%, 0.02% of the total taxable value of the project. That to me doesn't sound like a significant portion. Now when I told you that we would be looking at full taxation on this project, you told me, well, we can't afford that, that'll kill the project. However, knowing that our intention is to enter a full taxable value pilot, you still filed with Article 10, and you still filed your application. So that tells me that either you have a plan to screw us, or you can afford to pay the full taxes. So I think we need to get an explanation and some clarity, which is what my email was intended to get, and I still haven't gotten a response from that.
Okay, I think, excuse me, we don't know what the taxes are going to be for the facility.
I told you what they were going to be. I told you in our conversation.
I talked to the town assessor today to try to get an understanding of how systems like this will be taxed, and if you're looking at the total capital expenditure and then looking at the equalization for the towns, there's a methodology for just calculating that percentage, but I think that a standardized method of taxation throughout the state hasn't been established, and we look forward to figuring out how to work with the town to assess the value that the system brings accurately and provide a substantial portion of tax to the town. I can't tell you exactly what that is, and we want to make a tax contribution to the town, and we hope that it can bring a substantial benefit.
Well, I think the tax contribution you should make is what Mike here has a business. Several people in this room have businesses, and they pay the full taxable value.
I'm poor, and I paid $1,000 last year.
If you can't afford to pay,
One at a time.
if you can't afford to pay the full taxable value that every other business in this community pays, then it's a business model problem, not our community's problem. If you can't pay the full taxes, I don't believe we can, if an Article 10 process comes to us and we are required by the state to accept this process, we can't offer you incentives. That would be illegal, in my opinion, for us to do that. So I think it's not fair to this community to say a substantial portion. Can I say that to Mike? Mike, were you willing to pay a substantial portion of your taxes, or should you pay the whole amount?
No, but I do, unless the town wants to make us a sanctuary tax community.
I'm just saying that, I think we need to be fair and,
If I pay 10%, will your company pay 10%?
Well, I already talked to the assessor, so if you don't know what the tax will be, I'd be glad to tell you, because at $166 million.
$5.775 million.
Yeah, I can tell you, if you don't know.
What is the tax? Can I get one more?
$5.775 million.
We got something to say.
Can I get 1 minute?
And I can see the need, and Russ, we talked about this before, we gotta have a night for a public forum, a lot bigger room than this one, for people to voice their opinions and, to share their knowledge. So, we'll hold on to this. But I think, Russ, you said you talked about it, that you talked to legislators about having an open meeting. Did they come up with anything?
Carl, could we do a town hall? Get you put you on the
Just
spot.
dedicated to this.
The answer is that I would expect that we would have to do that. Now, where that would be, I'm assuming we would probably have, since we might, and there are probably folks who have researched this more than I, but I would think that the largest place would probably be at the high school.
The junior high school, the bigger auditorium.
Yeah, so anyway, I really believe, and it has come up on several occasions recently, that there has to be an opportunity, and I'd certainly be willing to talk about hosting it, that there is a town hall that would address this issue.
Mr. Arm will be part of that.
Sure, we will be a part of it.
And have so many more people with it, have to get more answers.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, people that don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
We're dealing with the unknown right now.
There, I think obviously has been a substantial amount of concern, and a huge amount of that is lack of knowledge and apparently transparency at this point. So I think that would be the least we could do. And probably could get some state representatives too.
Okay, people keep raising hands.
I just have
How
one.
about 3 more? Sorry.
Yeah, I would, again, Calvin Martin, can I present the board with several scientific studies of this stuff? Got them here.
Okay.
These are in science journals, peer reviewed. And they refute much of what Andy has been talking about. The heat island effect is real. I've been corresponding with a senior professor of crop science, that's his title, full professor of crop science at North Carolina State University. And he's been studying the ecological impacts of these solar farms. And he writes to me and says, they're a disaster. They kill the soil. Soil is a living organism. You know that, Bob. All you farmers know that. It's like skin. Soil is alive. These panels kill it. So here we have senior professor of crop science, North Carolina State University, saying it's a catastrophe, kills the soil. So here we go.
Kevin, is there a specific example in there, one that where our farm was up and it's been either decommissioned or maybe they've gone back and done soil samples and that it's no good anymore?
They're all still in the process. What Dr. Henninger, as his name is telling me, is that these companies are thwarting his research. In fact, he tells me they tried to get him fired in North Carolina, and he's a full tenured professor. He's telling me that he's having trouble getting his articles published because these companies are working behind the scenes to kill off the research. I'm a retired Rutgers University professor, taught there 20 years, senior professor. This is sleaze. When they start interfering with academic research, scholarship. He wrote me an email yesterday, I just gave it to you, and he is livid over what they are doing to squelch, to throttle, to silence the research. That's horrific. Okay, microclimate effects of the scientific journal. The plant soil carbon recycling being screwed up. Scientific journal. This is an opinion. And lastly, Andy talks about decommissioning the post and so on. It's the panels. They are all toxic waste, thousands and thousands of them. And that last article is on how do you dispose of that toxic waste.
Whose responsibility would that be?
Whose
My question
responsibility?
is, whose responsibility would
To
that be?
dispose of it?
To pull those 10 to 12 foot stakes, to take care of the solar panels.
You want my answer first and then
Yes.
Andy's? Okay, my experience, as I've been reading about this, is that by the time that year rolls around, 20 years from now, he's long gone. His company has already sold to 1 or 2 or 3 others down the line
And then
who
it's
have no
that-
assets. They have assets like Mike Fournier's got a pickup truck. And that's it, and he says, I'm sorry. What they're doing in North Carolina is being carpeted by these. That's why Professor Henninger got involved in North Carolina State University. For some reason, they've picked out North Carolina. And what the solar companies rather are doing there is saying, well, we give them to the farmer. You can have it. And what's he gonna do with them? Put them in the Franklin County landfill? That's against the law. So there's a big uproar in North Carolina over this right now. But in the spirit of transparency, if I may be sarcastic and facetious, he didn't bring that up. He talked about taking the poles out of the ground.
But nothing's been decommissioned through your company yet, is that correct?
Nothing's been decommissioned yet. Generally, it's to be a project's responsibility to remove all the equipment.
Would that be in writing after the fact, like
A
you
lot of
said,
times it
20
would be a part of the permit that
doesn't
would
own it.
actually be issued for the
Right.
project.
Would they be bonded?
All right, we're gonna make a decision on the opt-out during our meeting, we already started a meeting.
Could I just make a statement that might help people look into one statement?
All right, come on.
Okay. I'm familiar with the sites because I work a lot with wind energy. And if you go on the Department of Public Service, you will find their project number and PIP, and you can read about that. And they have to have something showing within this amount of time. So this counts as one. Okay, that's where this comes from. The other thing he says, I keep hearing there's one landowner. Well, I'm sorry, but I know there's at least 2. Is there any more than 2? I only saw 2 in those leases. I went to the county clerk's office and I printed out all the leases yesterday. So there's more than one that I know for sure.
Okay, you have the town board, I think everybody's going to comment tonight, any interest? You share the information. And
Thank
I
you all.
I think we'll carry on when the county sets up the town hall meeting. I think we'll all be there and part of a lot more, find out what's going on. And who walking and Geronimo will come and that's a part of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you all, the board.
When are you gonna vote on this, law, Howard?
Now, it's down on the agenda. Give me a couple minutes before I run.
Okay.
Minutes for September 27th regular meeting and October 2nd special.
Make a motion, a resolution to accept the minutes of September 27th and October 2nd.
Second. All in favor? Report, code officer for August, airport service worker for September, town clerk for September. Thanks for coming.
Oh, I have to ask